The hum of the server room was a constant companion, a white noise that usually soothed me. Tonight, however, it felt like a mocking chorus to the turmoil in my gut. I am Quentin, 46, and until a week ago I considered myself a fortunate man. A stable job as a network administrator in Seattle, a comfortable home in Kirkland, and a wife, Giselle, whom I adored. We'd been married for 15 years, a seemingly solid partnership built on mutual respect and affection. Or so I thought. The first crack in the facade appeared subtly. Giselle, a freelance graphic designer, started working longer hours. She had always been dedicated, but this was different. The late nights stretched into early mornings and her explanations became vague, peppered with jargon I didn't understand. A big project, she'd say, her eyes flitting away from mine. Lots of revisions. I brushed it off, attributing it to the pressures of her profession. But then came the phone calls. She'd excuse herself, her voice hushed, stepping out onto the patio even on the coldest nights. "Just a client," she'd murmur when she returned, her cheeks flushed. But the conversations were too frequent, too intense. I started noticing a change in her demeanor. She seemed distant, preoccupied. The warmth that had always characterized our relationship began to fade, replaced by a coolness that chilled me to the bone. My unease grew into a gnawing suspicion. I'm not a jealous man by nature, but the signs were undeniable. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the emotional distance, they painted a picture I desperately didn't want to believe. I tried to talk to her, to voice my concerns, but she dismissed them as paranoia. "You're imagining things, Quentin," she'd say, her voice laced with exasperation. "I am just busy. Can't you be supportive for once?" Her words stung, but I pushed them aside. I wanted to believe her, needed to believe her. The thought of Giselle, my Giselle, being unfaithful was unbearable. I clung to the hope that I was wrong, that my anxieties were unfounded. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it began to sprout, poisoning my peace of mind. One evening, while Giselle was supposedly at a networking event, I decided to do something I'd never done before. I checked her phone. I know it was a violation of her privacy, a breach of trust, but I was desperate, driven by a fear that consumed me. I waited until she was in the shower, my heart pounding in my chest, and then I grabbed her phone from the nightstand. It was password protected, of course. But I knew her birthday, our anniversary, and our son's name. After the third try, it unlocked. My hands trembled as I scrolled through her messages. There were texts from a number I didn't recognize, filled with flirtatious banter and suggestive emojis. My stomach churned. I clicked on the contact, my eyes widening in disbelief. The name staring back at me was Jasper. Jasper was Giselle's business partner, a slick, charismatic architect she'd been collaborating with on a new project. I'd met him a few times, and I'd always found him overly friendly, his compliments to Giselle a little too effusive. But I'd dismissed it as professional courtesy, never suspecting anything more. The messages told a different story. They revealed a clandestine affair, a web of lies and deceit spun behind my back. There were texts about secret rendezvous, stolen kisses, and passionate nights. My world tilted on its axis. The woman I loved, the woman I'd built my life with, was betraying me in the most intimate way imaginable. I read on, each message a fresh wound. They talked about me, about my naivete, my predictability. Giselle described me as a good man but boring, a safe harbor she'd outgrown. Jasper called me a cuck, a fool who was too blind to see what was happening right under his nose. Rage surged through me, a white-hot fury that threatened to consume me. I wanted to smash the phone, to scream, to tear down the walls around me. But I forced myself to stay calm, to gather my thoughts. I needed to know the extent of their betrayal, to understand the depths of their deception. I scrolled further back, uncovering months of lies and infidelity. They'd been planning this for a long time, carefully orchestrating their affair while I remained blissfully unaware. They'd even discussed leaving me, of starting a new life together. The pain was unbearable, a crushing weight that suffocated me. I stumbled out of the bedroom, gasping for air. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, the wind knocked out of me. Giselle was still in the shower, oblivious to the storm brewing within me. I sank onto the couch, the phone clutched in my hand, my mind reeling. How could she do this to me? How could she betray our marriage, our family, our life together? The shower stopped, and I heard Giselle humming as she got dressed. I knew I couldn't confront her now, not in this state. I needed time to process what I'd learned, to gather my composure. I wiped my eyes, took a deep breath, and forced myself to act normal. When Giselle emerged from the bedroom, she smiled at me, her eyes sparkling. "Everything okay, Quentin?" she asked, her voice light and carefree. I forced a smile in return. "Fine," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Just tired." She didn't notice anything amiss. She grabbed her purse, pecked me on the cheek, and headed out the door. "Have a good night," she said, her words echoing in the empty apartment. I watched her go, my heart breaking with each step. The woman I loved was a stranger, a liar, a cheat. The next few days were a blur. I went through the motions of my daily life, but I was a shell of my former self. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't focus on anything. The image of Giselle and Jasper together haunted me, replaying in my mind like a broken record. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of despair. I confided in my friend Etienne, a colleague from work whom I'd known for years. He listened patiently as I poured out my heart, his expression growing increasingly grim. When I finished, he put a hand on my shoulder, his eyes filled with sympathy. "I am so sorry, Quentin," he said. "That's a terrible thing to go through." Etienne offered practical advice, urging me to seek legal counsel and protect my assets. But more importantly, he offered emotional support, reminding me of my worth and assuring me that I would get through this. His friendship was a lifeline in a sea of despair. After a few days of agonizing deliberation, I decided to confront Giselle. I couldn't live with the lies any longer. I needed to hear her explanation, to understand why she had betrayed me. I waited for her to come home from work, my heart pounding in my chest. When she walked through the door, she seemed surprised to see me. "What are you doing home so early?" she asked, her brow furrowed. I took a deep breath and plunged in. "I know about Jasper," I said, my voice trembling. Her face paled. "What are you talking about?" she stammered, her eyes darting around the room. I pulled out her phone and showed her the messages. She stared at them in disbelief, her face contorting with fear and shame. "Where did you get this?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "It doesn't matter," I said. "What matters is that you've been lying to me for months. You've been having an affair with Jasper behind my back. How could you do this to me, Giselle?" She burst into tears, sinking onto the couch. "I am so sorry, Quentin," she sobbed. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just happened, it just happened," I repeated, my voice rising. "You planned this, Giselle. You orchestrated this. You lied to me, you deceived me, you betrayed me. How can you say it just happened?" She continued to cry, her words tumbling out in a jumbled mess. She claimed that she'd been unhappy for a long time, that she felt neglected and unappreciated. She said that Jasper made her feel alive, that he understood her in a way that I never had. But her excuses rang hollow, empty platitudes designed to deflect blame. I listened in silence, my heart hardening with each word. I realized that I didn't recognize this woman anymore. The Giselle I loved was gone, replaced by a selfish, deceitful stranger. "I want a divorce," I said, my voice cold and resolute. Her eyes widened in shock. "What?" she gasped. "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious in my life," I said. "I can't stay married to someone I don't trust, someone who has betrayed me in the worst possible way." She begged me to reconsider, promising to end the affair, to go to therapy, to do whatever it took to save our marriage. But I was unmoved. The trust was broken, the damage irreparable. I couldn't forgive her, couldn't forget what she'd done. I told her to leave, to pack her things and get out of my life. She refused, insisting that this was her home too, but I was adamant. I called a lawyer, changed the locks, and filed for divorce. The process was messy and painful, filled with accusations and recriminations. But I was determined to move on, to rebuild my life without her. As the divorce proceedings dragged on, I learned more about Giselle's affair with Jasper. It turned out that they'd been planning to leave me and start a new life together in Portland. They'd even bought a house, using money Giselle had secretly siphoned from our joint account. Their plans fell apart when I filed for divorce. Jasper's wife found out about the affair and kicked him out. He lost his job, his reputation, and his family. Giselle was left with nothing, abandoned by her lover and estranged from her husband. The divorce was finalized a few months later. I emerged from the ordeal battered but not broken. I lost half of my assets, but I retained my dignity and my self-respect. I moved into a smaller apartment, closer to work, and started to rebuild my life. I threw myself into my job, working long hours and taking on new challenges. I reconnected with old friends, joined a hiking club, and started taking guitar lessons. I discovered new passions and interests, things I'd neglected during my marriage. It wasn't easy. There were days when I felt overwhelmed by sadness and loneliness. The pain of Giselle's betrayal lingered, a constant reminder of the woman I'd lost. But I refused to let it define me. I was determined to move forward to find happiness again. One evening, a few months after the divorce, I received a phone call from an unfamiliar number. I hesitated before answering, my heart pounding in my chest. "Hello," I said, my voice trembling. "Quentin, it's Giselle," the voice on the other end said, my breath caught in my throat. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice cold. She sounded distraught, her voice laced with desperation. She said that she was sorry, truly sorry, for what she'd done. She claimed that she'd made a mistake, that she regretted everything. She begged me to forgive her, to give her another chance. I listened in silence, my heart unmoved. I'd heard it all before. Her words were empty, meaningless. "It's too late, Giselle," I said. "I can't forgive you. I can't forget what you've done." She started to cry, her sobs echoing in my ear. "Please, Quentin," she pleaded. "I have nowhere else to go. Jasper left me. I've lost everything. That's not my problem," I said, my voice firm. "You made your choices, Giselle. Now you have to live with the consequences." I hung up the phone, my hands shaking. I felt a pang of guilt, a flicker of sympathy for the woman I'd once loved. But I pushed it aside. She had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. A few weeks later, I ran into Etienne at a local coffee shop. He told me that he'd heard through the grapevine that Giselle was working as a waitress in a diner in Tacoma, struggling to make ends meet. Jasper was nowhere to be found. He'd moved to another state, leaving Giselle to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. I felt a sense of closure, a sense of justice. Giselle had betrayed me, had destroyed our marriage, had caused me immense pain. But in the end, she had paid the price for her actions. She had lost everything while I had emerged stronger and more resilient. I'm not saying that I am happy about what happened. The experience was traumatic, scarring me in ways I'll never fully understand. But I've learned from it. I've learned to trust my instincts, to value my self-worth, to never settle for less than I deserve. I'm still single, and I'm not sure if I'll ever get married again. But I'm open to the possibility of finding love again, of building a new life with someone who values and respects me. In the meantime, I'm focusing on myself, on my career, on my passions. I am traveling, exploring new places, meeting new people. I am living life to the fullest, embracing every opportunity that comes my way. Giselle's betrayal was a devastating blow, but it didn't break me. It made me stronger, more resilient, more determined to find happiness. I'm not a victim, I am a survivor. And I'm moving on one step at a time. Time passed. I continued to focus on my career, eventually landing a senior position at a tech company in Bellevue. I even started dating again, cautiously optimistic about the future. One evening, while attending a gallery opening in Pioneer Square, I met Bront, a vibrant and intelligent artist. We connected instantly, drawn to each other's passion and wit. Our relationship blossomed, and after a year of dating, we decided to move in together. Just as I was beginning to feel like I had truly moved on, I received another unexpected phone call. This time it was from a lawyer. Giselle had passed away. Apparently, after years of struggling with depression and financial hardship, she had taken her own life. The news hit me harder than I expected. Despite the pain she had caused me, I couldn't help but feel a sense of sorrow and regret. I attended her funeral, a small, somber affair attended by only a handful of people. As I stood by her graveside, I couldn't help but reflect on the choices we make in life and the consequences that follow. Her betrayal had set us both on a path of pain, and while I had managed to find my way back to happiness, she had ultimately succumbed to her demons. The experience served as a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of cherishing the relationships we have. I returned home to Bront, held her close, and vowed to never take our love for granted. Life is too short to hold on to anger and resentment. Forgiveness, though difficult, is essential for healing and moving forward. And so, I continue to live my life with purpose and gratitude, honoring the lessons I've learned and embracing the future with open arms. I channel my energy into my new relationship with Bront. I am determined to make it work. We get married. It is a small ceremony with close friends and family. Bront is everything I could have ever wanted in a partner. She is kind, compassionate, and understanding. She is also incredibly talented and supportive of my career. We build a life together, filled with love, laughter, and mutual respect. I never forget Giselle, but her memory no longer haunts me. I remember her as the woman I once loved, but I also remember the pain she caused me. I forgive her not for her sake, but for my own. I release the anger and resentment and I move on with my life. And so my story comes to an end. It is a story of betrayal, heartbreak, and resilience. It is a story of how I survived the worst experience of my life and emerged stronger and more determined than ever before. It is a story of how I found love again and built a new life filled with happiness and purpose. I hope that my story inspires others who are going through similar experiences. Remember, you are not alone. You are strong and you will get through this. Never give up on yourself and never lose hope. The future is waiting for you and it is filled with possibilities.